Johnny Carson once interviewed Betty Davis and asked if she had any advice for young starlets wanting to get ahead in Hollywood. She suggested take Fountain. Fountain Avenue runs parallel to Santa Monica and Sunset Boulevards in Hollywood and is often used to avoid the heavier traffic. And isn't that what we're all after? A smooth run, no hold-ups, not only in traffic but also in life. How do people handle those hold-ups, the rejections? How do they create a life in the entertainment capital of the world? How do they identify and express their uniqueness in a place where hundreds of thousands are hoping to do the same? Welcome to Take Fountain. Compelling stories from passionate people who've made it, are making it, in Hollywood. Writers, comedians, actors, filmmakers. I'll talk to anyone with a story to tell.
Welcome to Take Fountain, a podcast of passionate people working on their dreams. Compelling stories from Hollywood. Your host, Ella James.
Hello and welcome to Take Fountain. I've got a fabulous guest for you today who is raw, authentic, vulnerable, probably not what you normally expect on Take Fountain because we talk about journeys and the fabulousness of it all. But this particular woman, my God, she opened up on Facebook with such openness and honesty, and her experience echoes so many, and it's not spoken about, and I think it was about time it was. I met fabulous Australian actor Alex Davies in the green room at William Morris Endeavour while we were both competing for a voiceover audition or something. And we immediately, hit it off like a house on fire. Of course, I was a little bit, oh my God, it's that chick from McLeod's Daughters. Like All Saints or something. But anyway, here she is, Alex Davies. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Oh, Ella, thank you so much. And I say it's so beautiful to see your wonderful smiley face again. I do have very fond memories of that waiting room.
And then there was a hairdresser. I think you and I were trading Australian slangisms across the hairdresser. That was a little bit of fun.
That's right, with that Deborah. Biel. Oh, bless, I miss her. Yeah, speaking of hairdressers, been in lockdown for almost 9 weeks and feeling dry. I was thinking, how am I going to make myself look somewhat presentable today? But anyway, I've done.
Now, I should say, Alex is now back in Australia, and we're going to talk about that journey. But when we did meet, it was in Los Angeles. So I think let's do the chronological thing, and we'll start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. You were nominated for Best New Talent for the Logies back in 2003, and that was for The Young Lions, wasn't it?
It was, yes. It was it still is one of my favourite jobs that I ever did. The growth, the learning from that particular show, getting to work with the likes of Alex Dimitriades, who was my police cop partner, and the adorable Tom Long, who unfortunately we lost to cancer. It must be almost 2 years ago now. Incredible actor, an incredible friend. So that was a really sad loss for the industry and for his family and friends. And but the friendships that I made on that show were incredible, and I was really proud to be nominated because I worked really damn hard on that show, and it's a really tough industry. And it was it was my second lead role. The first lead was on a sitcom with the beautiful Jean Kitson.
It's
called
gosh.
Flat Chat.
Yeah.
So that was actually my first major gig, which I believe I was told much later on that I won over Rose Byrne. So I thought that was a pretty mean feat, considering how amazing she is. And I do know Rose because she grew up in Balmain, and I had a house there for 10 years when I was going to drama school at the University of Western Sydney. So from drama school, it went to getting an agent, and then and Alan Wilson was my agent at the time, and gosh, he was brilliant. And he ended up leaving the industry, which sort of confused things in my career a little bit because you start working with someone, and then it you got to find someone new and reestablish that relationship. But Flat Chat then led to the Young Lions, and then McLeod's Daughters were seeking me for a lead role at the time, but I couldn't do Young Lions and McLeod's, so they found ways to get me into McLeod's over the course. I think I played 2 different characters actually over the course of that show, and a whole range of other things. Secret Life of Us, I did a special guest starring episode in that, and everything under the sun. I did stuff on the ABC, did stuff up in Queensland, did Beastmaster, which was an American, got to play this warrior princess. I had a 16-hand black stallion horse and a wolf as my sort of pets, and I had this really cool weapon that, I had to do all this sort of stunt fighting, and I'd never done that sort of stuff before. So they got me a stunt double, and she was awesome. She made me look good, but there was
no. I mean, I do Runyon every morning, and we came up against a really steep part of the hill, and I actually had to get on my bottom and come down because I felt like my ankles were too far away from my chin, and it was just too steep. You know what I mean? And I thought, I'm going to come a cropper here, so I'm going to get on my ass. And I said to my walking friend, I only do that to impress the boys. And he said, I'm not impressed. I said, well, next time I'll take off my top then. Like, what's it? But
That's brilliant. I know. I must say, going uphill is a lot easier than kind of coming back down.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge problem. I'm still getting the sand marks out of it. It's a real, I have an audience of people who are both within the industry and outside of the industry. So this is more for the outside of the industry, but it's kind of known that to come over here, you do a bada boom, bada bang, bada bing. And that is you do television, you get cast in a feature film, and then you come over here and whooshka, off you go. That's the plan.
That's the plan. Yeah. The plan doesn't always come to fruition though, does it?
No. Well, was it kind of like that for you? Did you reach a stage in your career where you thought, okay, I really want to take it to the next level?
I did. So after I completed 4 years on All Saints, so I'd basically been going back to back, working really consistently, doing really well, and career-wise, but also financially. I was very smart with my money and bought property, which I then sold in order to make the move to the States. And I did a couple of trips, did a few little pilot seasons, and then quickly realised you can't be here unless, even the O1 visa is starting to become obsolete. So you do need to go for the green card. So I applied for that. It was like the flick of a coin. If I got it, I'd go. If I didn't, I'd stay. But, taking time out to have my son, I have beautiful little, actually it's his birthday next week. He's turning 11, little Indiana.
Happy birthday. And you're going to have to start lying about his age. Oh, my God. Let's say he's 6.
No, he'd actually tell you he's 20. Trust me. He's one of those kids. He's been around. Been around the block on this planet for.
So was he born in Australia? Was he born in Australia?
He was born in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, he was born in Australia, and then he was 18. Or what was it? He was about 20 months old when we flew over as like immigrating, and so packed up everything in the house. We had a full shipping container of all of our belongings and everything, and it was, well, let's just putting it all in black. And at the end of the day, you never know unless you go. So you got to give it a go, and regardless of the outcome, although that's the sort of advice you give to yourself. But then when things don't feel like they're going so well, the idea of coming back with your tail between your legs is not a very interesting prospect. And I'm a very competitive person. I'm a very driven person, and when I know what I want, I go after it wholeheartedly. And I did have, some success early on. I entered the United States in my early 30s. So it was in 2012. I was 33, so you can work out how old I am now. We quickly got set up home-wise and everything, renting a place, couldn't buy at the time because, with credit and blah, 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 didn't have that sort of history yet. But was, auditioning. I had a great manager, and I was getting out on some really big stuff, got to network test on a massive show, which didn't quite happen. So that was a bit disappointing. but at the same time it was going to be shooting in New Mexico and I was going to have to sign a 6-year contract, so which I would have done, absolutely.
Yeah.
But, it's just thinking about you schooling and things. I don't, you know what I mean? Like for the little one, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Who knows? Anyway, it's from there I ended up getting I did 3 independent feature films as a lead, which was pretty cool. And then things weren't coming, thick and fast. So I wanted to make sure that by the time Indy started school, that was the sort of benchmark I set for myself. Because I said to Mum, when did you go back to work full time with I've got an older brother, Lewis. So between the two of us, she said, was when you started kindergarten, I was full time. So I always had that as a bit of a benchmark. You can't just sort of sit around and let the pressure be on your partner. At this point in time, I was married, which I'm now no longer, but that's all right. That things happen. But I didn't want the weight of the financial responsibilities to fall on my ex-husband. So I looked at what other things could I possibly do in order to still fulfill my dreams and still be chasing the dream, but not, to start thinking realistically, what if it doesn't really pan out the way that you want it to? So I started writing my own stuff, and I wrote a 20-minute proof of concept called Run, which I also produced and directed and starred in. And that was a huge success and led me to being offered a job as a director on a feature film now titled Angel Baby. It had a different title at the time, but an American producer saw my work on Run, and he happened to be looking for a first-time female director, specifically female, for this project because it's a bit of a female Reservoir Dogs. So it's a kick-ass action film, and I helped do a director's pass. There was a few things that needed to be rewritten because we changed one of the main characters from being a male to a female, and there's a love triangle involved. So navigating, all of that required quite a bit of work throughout the script. So I put so much love and passion into that I realised, and Nick, my producer who hired me, he said, why don't you go shoot some of it? I was like, oh, yeah, because I've just got cameras laying around everywhere and, just money coming out of my bum. It's not quite as simple as that. But, I mean, you can go out there and shoot some stuff on iPhones and do things on the cheap. But I'm the sort of person that if I'm going to do something, I want it to be as professional looking as possible, especially if it's to show to investors and that you know what you're doing. I don't want it to look amateurish. So I ended up spending $15,000 of my own money, which I took a loan from my parents. And then when I sold my house, paid them back. And I'm really pleased that I did, because it's been an extraordinary business card for me. I shot it on the Arri Alexa Mini, which is a fabulous camera that Sony makes, and with anamorphic lenses. Now, for those who don't know the industry, it doesn't really matter. The point is I did it properly, and I paid everyone, got all the necessary permits. So I produced that one as well, and I didn't act in that one.
By this stage, the marriage is over, and you and Indy are on your own.
That's correct. Yes, sorry, because I've jumped around a little bit. But and we had to, when my marriage ended, I was trying to sort of make ends meet. There were lots of bills. We had a mortgage, and so I had crew. Yeah, my crew that I met for Angel Baby, I met because I was renting out the house for film location shoots, which is a great way to make some extra cash when you're in LA, because there's always things going on. So I met some great people. And the crew were phenomenal. And actually, I know you interviewed Martin Dinglewald recently. Yeah. He was, it was actually Cypher. It was his show that came to the house.
Oh, no.
That was the crew.
Oh, I can imagine.
And Marty realised on the call sheet, when he got the call sheet the night before, he said, he goes, no way, 14th Street. He goes, hang on, I got to check the number. And he goes, no way. He says, it's Alex's house. So, we socialised and had barbecues, and they used to come over and have swims in the pool. And here he was coming to my house to work, and they were there for the full week. I haven't seen the episode yet because I don't get Roku, but he's done really, really well out of that. I'm so proud of him. He's been a dear friend for, nearly 30 years. We've known one another. So, yeah, he's great. He deserves every success because he's such a good person. So anyway, we had lots of fun that week, and I got to know the crew really well. And I thought, God, maybe this is the time that I need to do this, go out and shoot Angel Baby. And the DP who was working on Marty's thing at my house, he suggested this fabulous location, which I would never have known about. And so I got to it. It was like a sign. I thought, you go do this, girl. And my son, Indy, he's in it as well. He plays the son, and he's fabulous. The crew all thought that I'd hired him just because he's my son, but he's actually quite a little superstar. He is. He's been my rock, through all the ups and downs of things. He's he's the one that keeps a smile on my face.
I think it must have been so hard, and this is why I wanted to talk to you, because I know that there's obviously some gems in there, and your career is not over, but you did indicate, well, you did say to me, it's stalled, and it's kind of like, what next? And that started to happen in LA before COVID. So I wanted to talk to you about that because, it's very difficult because you're constantly trying to show you the best side of yourself. And I get that, not you, but us.
Yeah. I know you in general.
I don't think acting is the only career where this happens. But I think particularly, I was reading about in the press last week, Paul Capsis and Amanda Harrison, who was in Wicked, and all of these fabulous performers who've left the industry and they've started to sell real estate, or they don't know what they're going to do.
I actually read the same article, and I was actually going to raise it in this podcast today too. It is. It's really sad, and it's so funny because even just recently I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do? I've come back from, I'll jump back a bit. So a couple of years ago, I didn't feel like I could have, after shooting Angel Baby, I didn't really feel like I could have much focus on myself and my career, because it's really tough being a single parent at the best of times. And when you're in a country where you don't have family support, and, how was I even going to go for a date? How was I going to have personal happiness again when every single day I'm having to look after this little person, which, oh God, don't get me wrong, I love and adore, but how am I going to go off to, he was at school. That was basically the only time I got a little bit of reprieve. And during that time, when auditions and things aren't coming, I'd started to work to learn the ropes with a producer. I'd lost, and in doing so, lost my agent. So I was unrepresented, staying over there, ended up working with someone who didn't do the right thing by me. So I basically lost my house, my income, my career, and then a couple of horrific things also happened to me. I was attacked by a gang. I stepped into on Hollywood Boulevard. It was the night after Thanksgiving, and I came out of a bar and was about to catch an Uber home. And this is one of the rare nights that my son was having visitation with his father. So I actually got to go out for an evening, and this is what happened. So it was, gosh, I don't want to why bother even venturing out when.
What happened?
I look across the
bar. What happened?
I look across the street and I see this young guy stomping repeatedly on the head of a poor homeless man who was laying in one of these little sort of alcoves on the street on Hollywood Boulevard, so on a main boulevard. And he had a sleeping bag on him. It was like he was trying to sleep, obviously, with his mere possessions around him. And this young guy must have been about 18 to 20, tall, slim, just absolutely giving him a beating, like he's like stomping on his head. And I just couldn't stand by and watch that. It was so traumatic. It was so horrific. It was like witnessing a murder. Well, and it pretty much was. So I couldn't just turn a blind eye. That's just not in my nature. So I handed my handbag to my friend who I was with. I looked up and down the street to see, you know, is he on his own? And he appeared to be, because there was no one else that looked like they were participating. So when the traffic was clear, I quickly dashed across and I pushed him. I pushed him off him. And I said, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?" Sorry for my language.
No, that's okay.
And I said, look at this poor guy. I said, "You're going to kill him." And all of a sudden, this gang that have been waiting in the shadows a block or so up the street come hurtling towards us, and this woman gets right up in my face, and these guys, the shortest one in the group would have been 6'2". So, and there were 8 of them, and I went, "Oh shit." And so I've got to do some quick thinking, quick talking here to get myself out of this. And I tried to use a little bit of comedy and said, "Oh, geez, well, hello, there's quite a few of you. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Alex." Trying to find a way to lighten the situation because I was in major fight or flight mode, but I was surrounded, so I couldn't flee. So the adrenaline's pumping and I'm just trying to work out how the hell I'm going to get out of this situation.
What's your friend doing?
And he had come across the road and he was calling the cops.
Right.
So he was sort of hanging back.
Yep.
And then I said, and all of this happened very quickly. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, I then tried to appeal to their better nature, but you know, you're dealing with a gang and they appeared to be, you know, high on something. And she was. The leader appeared to be this woman. It was a woman, which was really surprising. The rest were men. But she got right up in my face, you know, "What the fuck you doing, bitch? How dare you fucking talk to my brother like that? I'll fuck you up," you know. And when you got someone like that, it's like sort of getting right up in your face. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. And I just said, "Guys, you don't need to do this. Like, look at this poor man. Look at him. As if he's not having a shit one as it is, living on the streets. Please, you don't want to do this." And when I'm halfway through that sentence, she grabs my hair and just hurls me to the ground like a sack of potatoes, and then they all laid into me. So I had a broken nose, broken rib. Everything hurt. I mean, I ended up in hospital, and it was whilst I was at hospital that the police said to me, "You've interrupted a gang initiation." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Their gangs are killing homeless people in order to be allowed into the gang. So that's their initiation, is to go and kill a homeless person." Isn't that disgusting?
At that point, you think, "I've had it with this place. I'm going.
I've had it. I felt like I'd had it with life. I felt like this. Why am I? It was almost like I felt I deserved to be kicked because the kicks kept coming in all different ways. So
You're so brave.
But I'm such a fighter, though. I'm such a fighter. I had to get back up.
Have you got some tissues?
That's all right. I've got some paper towels. Bit scratchy, but good. Here we go. I'll grab one of these.
You don't have to. Your makeup isn't running.
So I was thinking,
I'm sorry to make you go there, but we did talk about, you know, I just think, because there are so many people at the moment, they don't know if they're ever going to work again. They're not qualified to do anything else.
Yeah.
And this is people in all.
I know, this is the thing. It's like, I don't know what I would, you know, you get told, you know, maybe you should go get a real job. It's like, well, I didn't even know what that would be. I didn't even know what that would be anymore. You know, I've once an actor, always an actor, and it's a bit hard. Like there's a sense of pride and ego about it too. You know, you've done all these amazing things. I won Best Actress in a short film that I co-produced with my dear friend Georgie and her husband Robbie, who directed and DP'd that. And it was a film that's very dear to my heart called PAST IMPERFECT, which was a 20-minute short that deals with mental health issues. And her, you know, she has a personal experience with that, and so do I. I was diagnosed with panic disorder when I was in my 20s. I did a lot of work when I was on All Saints to raise awareness with Paula Duncan and Jessica Rowe. We did a lot of work together. And I remember coming to set one day at All Saints, and they It was like the mailman had come, and I got called up to the office, to the production office, and I thought, oh, what am I in trouble? It was like being called to the principal's office. I was like, what's going on? And they said there was this huge, it was like a Santa sack of mail. And I said, what's this? And they said, well, that's all for you. And I went, what? And it took me quite a few weeks to get through it all, but it was, I couldn't believe it. I ended up telling my personal story about my struggles with anxiety and depression and being really on the precipice of taking my life back when I was 23, and then getting the necessary help and medication, and, you know, and working with a phenomenal psychiatrist to get me back on track, and, you know, getting to reaching that place in life, especially when I had not, you know, I had a great job, I had my house, wonderful friends, family. There was nothing I could be upset about. There was nothing I could put my finger on. It just, you know, the black dog. It's one of those things, you know, and I constantly through my life have to struggle with it. And so therefore when these other horrific things happen to you, it can really wear you down, and it's a real thing. And, you know, we all need to just be aware of one another, and everyone's circumstance is different to yours, and it doesn't mean that yours is worse than anyone else's or anyone else's situation is worse than yours. It's just we're all in this together. And I know that's become this saying during COVID, but it honestly is so true, you know. And the times that you are really down, you can often, I know from my personal experience, I shut down and I go to hide.
Yeah,
and sometimes it's really hard to get out of my bed.
I hate
because I don't know.
Are You Okay Day. And the reason I hate it is that I suffer seasonal depression, situational depression. So if somebody asks me, are you okay? I'm like, fine, I'm fine. I'm more humiliated that I think, God, can they see? Like, you know, I want to hide. I'll go off and I'll lick my own wounds, and I've got my tools now, and, you know, the meditation and the tapping and my support group that I go to, and all of those things. And I'm very fortunate in that way. But yeah, I hate this notion of being able to disclose to somebody, no, I'm not okay, because like, what are you going to do about it? You know, like, I mean.
Yeah, I guess. Well, the fact that I do understand, and I think there's merit in it for those who have no kind of concept, Ella, for what people like you and I experience. It's in a way, I think it's like Valentine's Day. It's for the people who don't know how to say I love you or give flowers or just be nice. You know, here's one day that we
scary.
Just never think about.
Scary. Okay.
You're listening to Take Fountain with Ella James.
Moving right along. So I also want to say to anybody who is watching this, I did ask you specifically, make sure you've got a support network around you, and to anybody who's being triggered by this, watching it today, to also know that help is there. And not to feel like you're completely on your own. But let's go back. So this is Hollywood. You are now a single parent to a child who's just started school. You've lost your agent, so you're not acting unless you're going to produce and direct it yourself. You've lost your house because you've invested in somebody who took you for a ride, which doesn't mean that you're a fool, but of course does not make you feel good. And you've also got this added feeling, and I've got to say, let's talk about this briefly. This notion that everybody back in Australia is going to have a thought about what's gone on in your career. Do you know what I mean? I wonder, I don't think I've ever heard of a conversation like that, but I know that it exists, that we think, oh, what's everybody going to say? Like, why do we care what everybody's going to say? And is anybody ever going to say anything, you know? I want to, because ultimately you've gone back to Australia, and has anybody said to your face, like anything nasty?
About not making it in America, or it's actually my closest friends have actually been incredibly supportive. If anyone's tough, it's me. I'm the toughest on me. They've said, we're just so happy to have you home and to know that you're safe, because, as I mentioned to you as you saw on my Facebook post, I had COVID last year.
Yeah, tell us about that, because that was just awful.
So my wonderful, glorious Hollywood career had turned out to be I'm the number one Uber, Lyft, and hop, skip, drive driver in LA. I have 5-star rating across the board, Ella. I must say, whatever you do it with a smile on your face.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
So I'm racing around doing voiceover auditions, bumping into my beautiful friend Ella, and then, but other than that, there was not really, I was driving by day and working on getting finance and things for my projects, for my film slate.
Yeah.
And looking after my little one, who, when he was at school, I had only a certain amount of hours that I could get out and drive, and they're not the best hours to be driving. It's Friday and Saturday nights, that's when you earn the better money.
Yeah.
So I was basically earning $10 an hour by the time you cover your gas and everything. But it was, I was applying for other sort of jobs and you just don't ever I didn't even get any responses. So it's not like I just gave up and thought, well, I was also ducking off and having meetings with, to do with my projects, because I made some incredible connections that I still am connected with. So that's why I figured coming back here, what's the point in being there and struggling and versus, coming back to Australia where I've got family and friends. But but the main reason was COVID. So, so I've been doing all my driving and whatnot. Hop, skip, drive is it's like Uber for kids.
Okay.
And so that was like a care position, which I actually took a lot of pride in that, because I was not only looking after the little ones, taking them to school and doing pickups from school. I was also looking after elderly as well with that particular app. And it gave me a real sense of accomplishment to pick these people up, to have a chat and, ask about them and, just giving energy begets energy. You know what I mean? So when I loved dealing with the little ones.
Or was this before COVID?
This was just prior to COVID. And then the reason I caught it was I was driving a man. So it was early on in the piece with COVID. I drove down to, I ended up getting a ride that took me down to Long Beach, which is where the first sort of hotspot in LA was. And I lived in Studio City, so right near you. So the idea of going down to Long Beach, I'd never, ever, like in the years that I had been doing this, gone down that way.
Long drive. That's
Beach.
like neutral beta Cronulla.
Yeah, exactly. So I picked up a guy in Van Nuys. It was my first trip of the day after I dropped Indy at school, and drove down. And you don't know where you're going to. So you pick someone up, and then once they're in the car, it shows you where you're going. And I just went, oh, shit, Long Beach. And anyway, I thought, well, it'll be fine, because it wasn't huge. COVID wasn't this. It was still being considered just this flu. And it was early on, and it was just this thing that was going to go away. And then the next passenger that I picked up was an elderly woman who was coughing and spluttering, and gosh, poor thing. But it was halfway through the ride, I went, uh-oh. I got her to the hospital, and I helped her out of the car and did a handover to the nurse.
To the hospital, or that was where she was going?
That's where she was going. And it was when I realised what the destination was. I went, yeah, you don't sound too well, and. As soon as I dropped her off, alarm bells were ringing, so I logged off straight away and took myself home, because that was the right thing to do, smart thing to do, and just put myself into isolation. Indy was with his dad, So I told his father to keep a hold of him, that I had concerns that, I may have been exposed and just needed to check and see. And sure enough, a few days later, I started feeling really ill. And because of my hop, skip, drive job with the kids and everything, they actually offered us a free telehealth appointment so that we didn't have to get in the car and just to, that was actually really responsible of them. So I took up that appointment when it got to the point where I couldn't even talk without coughing, and it was like a Mack truck was just parked on my chest. It was horrific, the fevers, everything. I lost the sense of smell, taste. So I basically had all the symptoms. At this stage, I couldn't go and get a test.
What? And
that's how I remember there was all those problems early on.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But I had every single symptom under the sun. And so the doctor that I spoke to, he said, I'm 99.9% sure that you have it and you're doing all the right things by self-isolating. So he prescribed me some Ventolin inhaler and some pneumonia medication and a whole bunch of other stuff that I took. And without that, oh gosh, I don't know.
You didn't wind up in
and it's really scary. What's that? Sorry,
you didn't wind up in hospital.
I didn't. I felt like I was dying. I felt very close to, and the fatigue is just horrendous. I still feel like I have issues with my lungs today. I still have this little wheeze.
Would have long.
Yeah. So, and then you put on weight because you're at home, and then it wasn't just COVID. It was the Black Lives Matter marches, and there was rioting. It just Trump. Everything just felt toxic across the board. And Mum said, "Come home, come home." And I had met someone in October the year before, my partner Matt, who is here with us in Australia now. And that was really tough because he's American and we didn't know when we were necessarily going to see one another again. But all I knew was I need to get my little boy back. He needs to be in school. The schools had closed in late February, and homeschooling and being in lockdown last year and everything, it was just horrendous. And I was absolutely miserable. I felt like everything had fallen apart. But by leaving, I'd invested so much money and time, for my green card. It was a huge decision because I've essentially lost that. I mean, it doesn't expire till June next year, but how am I going to go back? I've got the little lad. Everything for me is about. I have to prioritise him. So I've got to find ways of kind of surviving and getting through. But at least coming back, I was told when I was in quarantine, get onto Centrelink and, I re-established myself back into the country on Medicare and whatnot and see if you can get some government payments, which, as we know in America, they were few and far between. So, I couldn't even pay my rent and everything. I thought, I have to leave. So I've come back and, I've tried to approach a few agents here who say they love and adore me and fan of my work, but I've been away for so long now. There's so few roles for women in my age bracket. They've got to prioritise their clients that they've had for, for years and years. So I just feel like every which way I turn, I'm just sort of walking into a wall. And then now we're in lockdown again here, and it just feels like, oh, God, is this thing just following us? And, so Indy's been off school for 9 weeks. 7, because 2 of those, we first went into lockdown at the beginning of the school holidays here, in the June, July school holidays. So the case numbers are soaring and there's all, just people are afraid to get the vaccine. I'm fully vaccinated now and, each to their own, to your body or whatever, but please just do the research. I mean, people take all sorts of different medications.
No, don't do the research. Please don't do the research because you're not an epidemiologist. Don't tell people to do research because they're reading half a line from a weird YouTube and then they're spouting it forth. No, just take the bloody vaccine. You know.
Okay, there we go. I didn't know whether how hard to go with that, but yeah, I fully.
Oh man, I'm so over it. You know.
Yeah,
I just
do
think
yourself a favour. It's like, you know, I mean, how many people
just take it.
have tried recreational drugs in their life, and you know, there's fucking rat poisoning and that shit. So come on, people.
People eat Cheetos, you know, so don't tell me you don't want to put stuff in your body. And you know, the other thing is the first people, no, not the first people, but it is only human that if you are unvaccinated and you get sick, you are going to front up to the hospital and you are going to expect them to save you. And you are not going to ask them, why are you putting this mask on me? Why are you giving me this drip? Why are you doing that? So stop with this inquisitional apathy and it just, it's so anti-community. Right?
I totally 1,000% agree, Ella. It's, you know, and once you've had it, you realise you don't want this. You don't want this. It's not just another flu, and there's repercussions afterwards. And guess what? The vaccine isn't going to stop you from getting it, but it's going to stop you from being hospitalised and dying.
Absolutely.
It's going to stop, you know. So even now that I'm vaccinated, I still show respect towards the community. I'm still wearing my mask every time I walk out, even when I go for a run, because because I could still catch it and then give it to someone who is immune compromised, or you know, it's just there just needs to be more of a community spirit, which I didn't feel there was in the United States. That was one of the largest things about it, just this liberty over life. You know, it's my constitutional right to not wear a mask, and so I'll piss off.
I must admit,
but that's happening here now too, Ella. Unfortunately, in Australia.
In my personal circle, like in my apartment building, which is about 30 people, and let's add 10 friends onto that, there was none of that. It was everybody caring for each other, and I was with people, and it was all, you know, and shopping and so on. But I just think the global thing, that we're exposed to through the media, and a very limited media in Australia. You've got one guy on a soapbox screaming, basically, you know, murder. And so people taking their own media to suit their own inherent biases to what they believe. But I can't believe, I mean, somebody with a straight face, knowing that I was a journalist for 20 years, tried to tell me that they had researched it. And really? Like, how did that go for you? Like, did you call the professors and get a quote from them? Did you have a look at their studies and see what the results were of the various studies? You know, I mean, I can't even, and my filter has gone. It's gone. I was at a friend's place the other day. She's my one bubble buddy. And hang on, I'm going to cough. It's not COVID. I was over at her place and I was getting and I was really open, and she recoiled like this. And I said, can I go into your kitchen for a minute? And she said, sure. And I opened the kitchen door and I said, I can't see any. And she said, what are you looking for? I said, my filters. I seem to have lost my filter.
That's priceless.
I just get so cross. I just can't do it.
I know.
I know. I'm 37. She said, I'm 37. She'd never wanted children, right? I've known her for 10 years. She's never wanted children. I'm 37 and I'm worried about my fertility if I have the vaccine. I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I really don't. But I've lost all my friends now. Now I have to.
But because
because I'm a bit open.
Because of your filter. Well, do you know what? I'm 100% with you, Ella. It frustrates the shit out of me, and I just have to stop watching the news and everything now. I'm doing my bit, and I just want to hurry up and get out of this bloody lockdown, so that, you know, because it feels like forever that in a day that I've been able to pursue things. But I have a little gift did come to me. I have been teaching at my, believe it or not, I went to where I grew up was Castle Hill in New South Wales, and I've been teaching the Year 11 students acting for camera on Zoom.
Perfect.
So my old drama teacher, Annie Babington, who is one of the most charming individuals you could ever come across, we remained friends. She was my drama teacher at Castle Hill High, and we caught up when I got out of when was it? It was early this year. We reconnected again, and she came along to see one of Indy's basketball matches on a Saturday, and then we had lunch, and it was like no time had passed. She's such a beautiful, beautiful human being. And anyway, she calls me up. She says, "Hey, listen, I don't know how long this lockdown's going to go, but can you help me out with the year 11s just so I can get them doing something, because we can't do what was on the syllabus unless we're in person." And I said, "Sure." And she said, "Maybe some acting for camera, because that's what you've been doing in your career." And I said, "Absolutely." And so I've been all this term, I've been working with them, and I actually worked with the year 10s as well last week. And it's given me a little sense of purpose again. That's something to get up for, because we all need routine and structure, and that's the thing that's hard, and that's what can get you into the funk, is not having anything to do.
All that was probably the same for you. When I moved over here, although I was not an actor of note at all, and no experience like yours, but people were like, "Oh, I can't wait till you get your star on Hollywood Boulevard, and you're going to be up there getting an Oscar," and you think, no. But all of that dreamy side of acting, the reality is, as an actor, what you want to do is act. You want to audition, you want to book, you want to be on set, on stage, you want to mix with other actors, you want to take direction, you want to learn from great directors, you want to find your light with brilliant lighting guys. You want to be doing that. All the fluffy stuff is just that. It's just the fluffy stuff. And I rather expect that although you've come back to Australia with 5 suitcases as opposed to a shipping container, and without the credits that you really wanted, that there's a fabulous future ahead for you. And I do regret the fact that there are limited jobs. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, "I'm thinking of coming back to LA, although my agent says there's a lot of stuff being shot in Australia." And I said, "Well, why don't you ask your agent what breakdowns she submitted you for and what you might have got to look in? Because those they're fabulous shows, right? Don't get me wrong, but they're casting 12 people. And 10 of them are American."
Oh, exactly. I know. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to. Oh, are you talking about over there, or are you talking about in Australia?
I'm talking about in Australia. I'm kind of with you.
In Australia, yes. And that's one of the reasons why I left too, because after having Indy, and taking, because unless this is a pregnant role, or you're already in a series and then they work out how to shoot around you or make it part of the storyline, then, and I just did some teaching basically through Screenwise with Denise Roberts, and that was about all I was doing. Had Indy, and then I had lots of sort of issues with him. He wouldn't take a bottle from anyone, so I was just the walking boob. So it was just very, I took myself out of the loop basically in order to have a child, and men don't have to go through that. And there's more roles for men and less roles for women, and yet more women in the industry competing for those few roles. So it got to a point where I just went, "Oh my God, if I see Asha Ketty, sorry, she's fabulous and whatever, but I'm starting to get confused about what television show I'm watching right now, because she's in all of them."
Is she really? Well, I mean, but it's long been known that the same people get cast over and over again, and they're fabulous actors. We know that, but it's just how it seems, But anyway, my darling, we could talk all day and all night.
Oh, we could, till the cows come home.
I would like to have you back on the show when things are happening for you, because I know they will. And but I wanted to really thank you for your openness today, because I mentioned to somebody that I was having somebody on the show who was going to talk about authentically what it's like when it all stalls or feels like it's stopped. And they said, oh, you should interview me, because, and I went, no, because it's not you know what I'm saying? That was very articulate, Ella. It's not about poor me, right? Your story is not a poor me story. You're matter of fact telling me, lost my house, husband's gone, got bashed up on Hollywood Boulevard, got COVID while I was Uber driving, came back to Australia. They said, we love you, we love you, we love you, but we don't want you. And then you're in lockdown for 11 weeks, homeschooling an 11-year-old. I mean, I'm surprised that you haven't duct taped him to the ceiling.
I know, when you actually sort of count the things out, it's pretty full on, isn't it?
It is full on. It is full on. But I'm really glad you've got your mum, you've got your friends, you've got Maddie. Love is all.
Love is all.
I hope we get to work together one day.
Oh, Ella, I do too. I'm writing a really awesome, so I'm extending run into a female buddy comedy feature now.
Okay.
And there's going to be lots of crazy fun characters. I'd love to have you come play on that.
Love to.
I want to make sure that there's more roles for women. So I think by writing them, and then eventually it'll happen. You just got to hang in there and try and do other things in the meantime. Try and put the pride and ego aside that you had this fabulous career. Well, things sort of change. Think about what's going to happen next is what I'm trying to focus on. And sometimes that's easier said than done, but, got to hang in there.
Well, Alexandra Davies, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ella James.
Okay, darling. I'll speak to you soon.
So good to see you and talk to you. All the very best.
You've been listening to Take Fountain with Ella James. Available at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favourite podcast player. You can also stream on demand at Bytes.com. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.